Welcome to last week's news today and another week of Ashes of Creation development. Lots to go through this week. The Ask Me Anything with Stephen Sharif was held on Friday the 10th and was packed with great questions. Thanks to Nice Gaming, Vladis, Loreforged, and Jamie Chaos for bringing together some amazing community questions. We're going to try to condense this for you, but if you want to check out the full stream, we have the links below. We'll start with some of the announcements made on Alpha 2 features at launch. Rogues won't be available at the start of Alpha 2 because Intrepid wants to focus on fleshing out the current archetypes first. The Alpha 2 launch classes will include Tank, Ranger, Fighter, Mage, Bard, and Cleric. Summoners and Rogues will be added in the first Alpha update. Steven later dropped by on Discord and added that there will be countermeasures found in itemization, other archetype abilities, and environmental that stop stealth. So there is a strategic and tactical response to invisible players. We then learned that not all node government types will be available at the beginning of Alpha 2. Scientific nodes will be the only one present. Utilizing the election method for node mayorship, updates to node services and types will follow through subsequent updates. Steven did mention that they will test systems and features related to other node types through the narrative system, such as through commissions. Steven clarified the contents of weapon groups available at the start of Alpha 2. He mentioned one-handed mace, sword, wands, spellbooks, longbow, shortbow, two-handed swords, spears, and dual-wielded daggers. While there may be other weapon types categorized into these groups, these are the ones with fully fleshed out skill trees. Various combinations for dual wielding like one-handed mace will utilize the same progression tree for dual weapons. Shields do not have a dedicated weapon tree since they are considered offhand. Instead, there will be passives and universal skill progression trees that contribute to shield usage. Next are some guild feature drops. We got to hear some examples of guild tools that they are considering, such as messaging guild members offline, either through integrating SMS text as an option or being connected through forums. This would allow players to message guild boards in the game, view the message of the day, and access forums. Guild administration will have access to data regarding player performances, events, guild wars, and information about player properties, family system members, and so on. The guild skill system was briefly talked about. Steven mentioned that it's a delicate balance. Their approach is to delegate passives to certain groups within the guild, with core groups having stronger passive access. When a guild is formed, it initially has, for example, 30 member slots, constituting the core member group. Leaders can move people into and out of this core group. Upon unlocking guild slots, a new separate group within the guild structure is made. Guilds can name these groups as they wish. These additional groups will have access to different types of passives, which may be horizontal or vertical. The guild will then spend currency to escrow skill points to invest in these passives in specific groups. The goal is to maintain the strongest passives for the core group, allowing their power to decrease as it extends outward. Examples he provided included waterfall stat augments, crit rate, regen value, and more intricate effects like negating a spell attack against a target every 30 seconds. And we finally got to learn a little bit about guild freeholds. A guild freehold isn't merely a finite piece of space like a player freehold. It's likely to be expandable plots surrounding the guild hall, where guild members can have individual access. These plots, administered by guild leaders, allow players to lay down additional small plots of land for farming, raising livestock, or engaging in other freehold endeavors. Thus, the guild hall serves as a central hub for these additional plots surrounding it. Now let's take a look at some of the discussion on archetypes and weapon skill trees. Steven confirmed that there will be a universal source of stamina. Active actions like blocking, sprinting, and dodging will be included in a universal skill progression tree. Players can choose to allocate skill points into this tree, which will be shared with their archetypes, and passive skill points as well. This encompasses abilities such as parrying attacks. He mentioned that he will provide more details on this system during the summer, likely in late summer. Steven talked about there being a range of diversity for healers and tanks through the use of the secondary archetype. Augments are meant to complement primary active abilities, and because there is only one tank and healer primary archetype, they may offer some of the most interesting secondary augmentation choices. To maintain the balance of the Holy Trinity, having only one tank and healer role allows party composition to function as intended. Steven also mentioned the possibility of fighters serving as off tanks and other roles, touching on the basics of what those roles can do. For example, he mentioned that bards will have regenerative abilities that they can utilize, and if they choose to specialize in a secondary archetype such as cleric or tank, they'll get much closer to fulfilling those roles. There won't be any trial quests to test out secondary archetypes. Steven emphasized that your choice should matter as it helps create a stronger identity and reputation for players with their archetype choice. However, he did note that players will still be able to change their secondary archetype through a quest chain. Moving on, let's see what was said about the open world, PvP, dungeons and raids, etc. Steven reminds us that while the vast majority of dungeons are open world, some are instant, including individual instances, dungeon instances, and raid instances. Different areas will have different rarity spawn tables, creating PvX friction. Some areas will be very large to accommodate many groups, while others will be small. For instance, the Tower of Carfin is split into two sections, the tower itself and the grounds around it. The grounds can cater to groups of 3 to 5, while the tower, serving as the dungeon, is designed for full parties and consists of 6 levels, capable of supporting 3 to 4 groups. In the case of open world dungeons, there will be no protection against other players. However, expanding on the previous question regarding dungeons, there will be various instanced raids and dungeons. Steven provided an example of a PvP encounter in an open world PvX environment. The losing team might receive a dampener debuff that stacks and increases over time, making it more difficult to interrupt the other group. There was a good question regarding how death penalties might lead to Zerging world bosses. Steven explained that rewards are finite and only a few drop. Not everyone receives a reward. The more players present, the harder it becomes to obtain a rare drop. So if you aim to reduce risk, you'll have reduced reward. And an update on time to kill next. It can now vary from 10 to 15 seconds to upwards of 30 seconds, depending on the archetype. This adjustment aims to encourage groups to prioritize precision and coordination when attacking or defending against specific targets. Steven emphasized that skillful targeting of the right enemies can effectively counter Zergs, which are typically less organized. Some node updates now. Here's a big question, so we'll read this one out. With the elimination of the enemy of the state feature, what mechanisms are available for node citizens to manage or counteract situations where groups of non-combatants intentionally deplete resources from an enemy node, given the significant downsides associated with becoming corrupt? Mechanisms that Steven mentioned were guild wars and node wars. It's up to players to utilize the game systems on how to counteract situations. Steven did bring up the point of an alt character being citizenless. A counter to that is Intrepid's plan to add ways for land management to be improved through policies. We received clarification that crafters can use stations at any node. The difficulty lies in transporting the materials you need. Crafting at your own nodes offers significantly reduced fees and other additional benefits. He reminded us that all nodes have markets that provide player stalls and player shops. Auction houses are an expansion of the economic node. Player shops require a certificate that gives you a UI message board above your stationary character, allowing others to come and access your shop. The difference between economic nodes and others is that you will be able to set up your shop anywhere in the zone of influence, not just in the marketplace. We've got something for the Tolnar fans. The Tolnar are not a centralized nation. They are tribe-like, and not all Tolnar tribes will be friendly to other races or even to other Tolnar tribes. Despite this, they have achieved some significant construction/architecture, and there will be a metropolis-sized location for the Tolnar. And to finish off the Ask Me Anything stream, we got a story arc and lore snippet. Some story arcs will target high-level players, while others will include story sections appealing to a broader player base. Content completed by lower-level players will contribute to the overarching story arc, influencing the opportunities available to higher-level players. Completion of certain objectives within the story arc may require the participation of low-level players. Currently, there are no fully fledged dialects. Much of the audio we hear from NPCs is just a snippet of their culture and identity. However, in the long term, this is something Steven wishes to implement. He believes it's important for NPCs to have memorable identities. Currently, it's not a priority in development. In the final questions, we learned a little bit about Essence. Some people in the world of Vera have a greater ability to use Essence, resulting in stronger effects, good and bad. Players are strong wielders of Essence. However, while all have a mortal coil, not all are adept at wielding the Essence or take an interest in its study. Outside the AMA, we got a couple of other info drops. Roshan mentioned Intrepid's hopes on server merges. He said that the desire of the team is not to do them. They'll figure things out if that's what is healthiest for the game, but they'd rather manage server population so merges never happen. And for those who use Discord, if you missed the update on rules, there is now a cooldown for how often you can change your display name. You can only change it once every 30 days. This is to keep their rules in line with their policies across other platforms, such as the forums. Otherwise, we've got a few tweets showing off many things, like careers and several things they mentioned or showed in their last live stream. As we mentioned in our last video, Intrepid was going to show off some of the other one specs through social media. Here's one of them. This one deals direct damage via projectiles. And finally, Fan Art Friday. Tomo Burb did an awesome job at drawing the Renkai. So cool. And that's it. See y'all next time.